Hey there, Perhacs, and welcome to Immersion Live. That's right. So tonight, I've got something really special for you. We're going to really go into detail, or at least as much as we can, into my book, Immersion. We're going to start with some pieces. As a matter of fact, maybe over the next couple weeks, we'll start building this out so that you can understand the importance of it. Why did I write a book called Immersion? Well, you're going to find out today. It's really how to master any skill faster, quicker, more reliable to get the results you want. Bottom line. That's it. I've been talking about immersion for years. Finally wrote the book. Matter of fact, take a look at that. The book, Immersion. What does that say there? The success secrets of high performance men and women. Instant clarity, confidence, and control. Like the first 80 pages, it's all you need to read. And if you're a business owner, you can read the other pieces. But we're going to go into some detail. And I think you're going to get a great deal of value from it. No question about it. In fact, this is sponsoring the video, sponsoring the live, right? So it's my own course. But even more importantly, we're also going to include the immersion code, which is an entire system to get you, again, immersed in whatever it is that you want to accomplish, right? So it's not what I want to accomplish, it's what you want to accomplish. So let's introduce, and for those of you that you don't know anything about immersion, we're going to go into the details of it, right? We want to define it. Immersion is where you pick something that you want to do and you dive into it. You do a deep dive into it, right? You immerse yourself into it. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I did when I was younger, or not even younger, but even writing this book. You immerse yourself in the process. You immerse yourself into what it is that you want to do. Probably I could leave right now, and that's all you'd need to know. But why don't we give you some background and some phases of mastery, what that looks like, how you can go from point A to point B, so on and so forth, right? So the concept of immersion, so you understand it, how do we become good at something? How do we become a master at a skill, at something, right? And there are phases of mastery that, see, through the immersion process, we can shorten the cycle, you see, because you could let the cycle go out for years, right? Or you could condense it. When I started doing martial arts, I had a criteria of what I wanted to learn. And then I immersed myself in it, and I learned and studied and learned so many different arts in a very, very short period of time that I was at a black belt level of several different arts almost simultaneously because of the immersion into it. And I knew more about those arts than many people that had been doing them years because they were doing the stretch out method. I was doing the immersion method. But let's talk a little bit about the phases, right? The pathway to mastery. These are the phases, and you can write, I want you to write these down, obviously. The first one is student. And you're getting started in something. You don't know anything about it, really. And you just start learning. You're green. You're ignorant, so to speak. And this goes with any skill. Business, entrepreneurship, owning something, getting in shape, school, learning an advanced skill, programming, becoming a plumber. Like, for instance, I'm not a handyman. My wife is our handyman in the family. Sad to say. Well, not sad to say. She enjoys doing it. I don't enjoy doing it. My dad was a handyman, and probably if I wanted to learn, I could go to him and become a handyman. My brother, super good handyman, or pretty good, whatever, but that's not me. So you become a student. Number 2 is you become an apprentice. Right? You have a mentor, obviously, to get you where you want to go. That's why I always say you have to have a coach or a mentor in order to get where it is you want to go. You want to be good in martial arts, you have a mentor, a sensei, a sifu, somebody that's going to instruct you on how to get from where you want to be to where you want to go. Plain and simple, right? You become the apprentice, which means the apprentice, the way I see this, and again, this is business too. I was an apprentice in sales. I was an apprentice in management. I was an apprentice in technology. I had to learn. And so I had mentors, coaches, if you will, that taught me these things, right? 3 is knowledgeable. Right? So you become a student, an apprentice, and then you become knowledgeable. So where you're apprentice, you're just learning. You're learning the recipes. You're learning the formulas. And then knowledgeable is where you actually can start to use the formulas. And again, you can stack this in any type of learning you want. And as we get into other books of mine, manipulation, and we get into the instant mind force, and we get into all these different books. And the reason I'm doing this is because these books have power. You read them, and then you actually use them, you're going to get results. But you're becoming knowledgeable. And then after knowledgeable, you become skilled, right? So now you have the knowledge, and now you have some skills where you're really pretty good at it. You could probably put the recipe together without looking at the recipe. I started making ice cream. And the first time I made the ice cream, I had the recipe in front of me, had everything there explaining how to make the ice cream, how much sugar, how much cream, how much milk, how much additional ingredients, if you wanted additional ingredients. And the first several times I did that, I had to have that sheet of paper in front of me in order to understand how to make the ice cream. It's a process, it's a formula, it's a recipe. And then I became knowledgeable. Okay, I remember this. I don't remember that. Let me go take a look. Then I became skilled, where I almost know the whole thing. I don't need to even bring out the recipe. I remember it. It's not that difficult, right? And then 5 is expert. You become an expert at something. They say 10,000 hours to become an expert. It's probably about right. But how do you squinch that down so that you can make it a longer situation or a shorter situation? How do you do that? We're gonna talk a little bit about that. And then 6 is master, right? I don't know if you ever master. A lot of people like to say I'm the master instructor and that kind of thing, or master this, master that. And it's big into martial arts. Obviously, you can see I came from the martial arts. Master, right? To me, you're always trying to become a master. You may never get there, but it's okay. That's something to strive for. You become a master, expert. Expert's good. But these are the phases. These are the phases that you're going to go through as you learn a skill or want to get good at something, and you're immersing yourself into that situation. That's part of it. No question about it, right? And then the other thing is this, is that, and again, I relate things to the martial arts because that's what I did for so many years, still do. And what it comes down to is systems over technique, right? So you could have a good technique or a group of techniques, and they could serve you, but if you pack them into a system, a methodology, a framework that allows you to be able to get more for less time, right? And so you want to build and follow systems. That's what I create. I've created systems. I work with businesses. I work with individuals. I work with companies. I coach individuals. We put together a system. How are we going to get you from point A to point B? I have a 9-step system. I have a 6 pillars to the Mind Force method. Again, systematic approach versus just a bunch of techniques. Techniques are great. And you can learn them. And believe me, when I got started, I just wanted to learn techniques. But in every field of endeavor, whether it's business, sports, personal development, it all comes down to having a system to get results. Bottom line, right? And when it comes to immersion, I want you to have a mindset of self-employed. Even if you work for somebody, I want you to have the mindset that you are self-employed because you are running your show. Even if you're working for somebody, you have it in your mind that you're still the shot caller. You're still the person that's making the decisions in your life. And the impact of this mindset is so powerful in both personal and professional growth. You go into work with a company, you're always self-employed. Even though you're working with that company, you're still in your mind self-employed. You control the situation. And when you develop a marketable set of skills in any endeavor, you are self-employed. You could become a consultant, you could go out on your own, or you could work with a company, but you're still, because you've got those skills. These are some of the keys that most people will never realize. And so in order to get good at a skill in a record time, right? Fast, quick, effective, it's going to come down to a specific system, a specific methodology in order to do that. But the concept of immersion is picking that thing that you want to do and deep diving and finding out all of the angles of what it is that you want to learn. And when you do that, you will get amazing results. And we're going to talk about one of the key elements that I've talked about for years. If you've followed me, if you've read any of my books, you probably almost know what's coming next. Flight time. Putting in the proper flight time. If you've read any of my books, taking any of my courses, regardless of which ones, when, you've heard me talk about flight time. You've heard me talk about the secret to rapid mastery is the flight time. Okay? And the concept of flight time is it comes from the concept of pilots, right? Pilots get good based on the amount of hours that they're in the air. Plain and simple, right? And they put in the time. It also comes back to this 10,000 hours situation. But you got to put in the flight time. You got to put in time earned. And I always use the example. Actually, I got a lot of examples because I use immersion and I use flight time in everything that I do. So when I first started studying hypnosis, NLP, let me tell you how I got started in that, by the way, real quick. So I'm doing chi exercise, I'm doing meditations, and I'm realizing that the meditation is very similar to a self-hypnosis induction, right? It's really what it is. When you're going into a meditative state, you're going into a trance. And I started thinking, what about trance? What about hypnosis? I heard about it, but as I started investigating, I realized how close it was to what I was already doing in the meditative state, in the Qigong and in the power voice, the Qi power voice. And so I immersed myself in this concept of hypnotic influence. And so what I did was I hit it from every angle. Now again, just like I did in the martial arts though, I knew there were certain things that I wanted to learn and there were certain things, aspects that I didn't really care about. So number one, that I didn't want to learn, I didn't want to learn really any therapeutic stuff. Didn't really want to get into that. Not that it was bad or anything like that, but I wanted I wanted to learn how to hypnotize with power covertly, which means I could do it on the fly anytime, anywhere. I didn't need to have a script. And so my whole concept was that. How am I going to get good enough that I could covertly hypnotize, influence, persuade? And I put an extreme amount of flight time. I was constantly listening to seminars. I was constantly watching videos, which is great. But let me tell you what I did also. Is I was constantly writing out scripts. I was constantly rehearsing. I was constantly trying different things when I would go out in public. Yeah, that's right. I was hypnotizing people in public. I was using these skills in public. And sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. But see, the fact of the matter is you've got to put in the flight time to know what's going on. And so you've got to, again, build systems for rapid learning. How to distill the learning into a systematic approach. And the way I did that was I knew what I wanted and I knew what I didn't want. So this was what I wanted, right? I said covert, influence. I wanted to learn that type of thing. Therapeutic things I wasn't as interested in, although I learned it later. I wasn't interested in stage hypnosis or anything like that either, so that was out, right? Although I understand it, right? And then steps, I would create steps for creating a personal system of accelerated learning. Everything, almost every book I wrote was for me. It wasn't for you. Now, you get the benefits of it, but it was for me to get better. Plain and simple. And I would read the book and I'd say, okay, that makes sense. And I would write my notes and I'd put it in there. And then it comes down to that practical application. Is how to apply flight time to any skill. Any skill you want to learn. You want to become good at programming. You've never done programming. You find a mentor, coach, methodology that you can use, a system, and you start learning how to do it. The only way you're going to learn is putting in a flight time. Plain and simple. That's how it works. You can accelerate your growth. You can accelerate your results by putting in more flight time. I heard it said that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, guys like this, when the game was over, the practice was over, they're shooting extra shots. Nobody told them to do that. They were already at the top of their game. They were already probably the best in their game, and yet they kept practicing their shots. Same thing with golfers that are excellent golfers, and yet at the end of the game or the practice or the training, they hit more balls. They hit more balls. I was listening to a podcast. If you've ever heard of John Brown, he was Mr. Universe back in the 80s. Well, he has 3 boys, and I can't remember the names of all the boys, but he renamed them Saint Brown because he said there's a lot of Browns out there. I want them to be different, Saint Brown. And one of the Saint Brown boys is on the Detroit Lions. He's one of the top, most highest paid wide receivers or tight ends in the business. And they were interviewing John Brown, and they said, John, how did you train your kids to become such good athletes? And he said, number 1, I controlled their diet. I controlled also their thoughts by giving them affirmations. And he said, I also found how to get better by looking at the other people in the high school or in the college or wherever that were getting amazing results. And he used the example after a high school practice or a high school game, they played a team where one of the guys on the other team was fantastic, was a really good wide receiver. And he said to the father of this kid, hey, how'd your kid get so good? And the father said, well, we do 40 passes after every game, 40 passes. And he went back to his son, John Brown did, and said, we're going to do 100 passes after every game. We're going to get better and better and better and better. That's putting in flight time. This is how you get good at something. You can condense it. It doesn't have to be long. Now you can, if you can take your time to learn anything. But if you want rapid results, you put in the flight time and you put in a lot of it. When I first started doing the cheat training, I started out really small, and then I started to the point where I was doing 2 or 3 hours a day. hour and a half in the morning, a little bit at lunch, another hour at night. I was immersed. I was putting in the flight time. And it's a key. It's a definite key that if you want to get the results, you put in the flight time. Do you ever wonder how we retain information? So you've got this immersion. You want to get good at something, right? You're putting in the flight time. And we talked about the systems, right? But let's uncover something that you probably already know somewhat, right? You might not know all the exact numbers and everything like that. It doesn't matter, right? But let's understand how to maximize your learning retention, because as you're going into this process, and we're always learning. I'm always learning. I'm always reading books. And if you're not doing the same, you're not going to get as good as you could. But I'm going to give you some techniques for effective learning, accelerated learning. If you go to my 12-week accelerated immersion, it's all about acceleration. It's all about immersing yourself so that at the end of the 12 weeks, you accomplish more in 12 weeks than what most people would accomplish in 12 months. That's a key. But let's talk a little bit about this, shall we? Retain info, right? So check this out. 10% of what you read, 22% of what you hear, okay? 37% of what you see. Let me back off so you can see it. 56% of what you see and hear. And up to 86% of what you see, hear, and do. 86% see, hear, and do. That's the ticket. This is the acceleration point. Why do I bring this up? It seems pretty common sense that you would have these things, right? But here's the deal. A lot of times people will read things and think, oh yeah, I read that book. But they didn't retain it because, like I said, 10%. I read books all the time. And I'm always underlining them and everything. But if I don't go back, I forget. 10%. This is a reality. This isn't just some numbers that I picked up. And guess what? What if it is 15%? What if it is 20%? It's still a number that you can rely on as what you are. Now, everybody's going to be different too. That's the other thing. You know, my one instructor used to say, not everybody fits into a size 40 suit. In other words, you've got to modify the training. You got to modify your immersion based on the person. You might read it 20%. I might read it 5%. But let's say 10. We're going to call it 10%. Hear 22%. So you hear something. Why do you think when you go to school, you have the teacher in front of you speaking to you, giving a lecture about whatever? And then C, 37%, right? So the teacher's speaking and the teacher's showing you the math problems. Maybe they're showing a map in the history of Europe and Asia and whatever, United States. 56% for see and hear, right? So that's why when you're in a classroom or you're in a seminar, you're going to retain more when you see it and you hear it, right? See, hear, and do is up to 86%, which includes the reading portion of it. So how do you do that? And this is valuable information. is that let's take these concepts and scale it out. You want to combine reading, listening, and doing to maximize retention. And I've had a system in place, mentioned going back to the systems, formula, framework, read, listen, associate. Read, listen, associate. Now, obviously, do is packed in there, right? Execution. Information versus implementation. Without the implementation, your results are here, 10, 20%. Listen to an audiobook and you read it at the same time, you're getting results. And I listen to a lot of audibles, a lot. And I read a lot of books. And guess what? Some of them I don't remember at all. And the reason being is because maybe they didn't have an impact the first time that I wanted to lodge into it. However, the ones that I really want to decipher what's in there, I'm reading it, I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, I'm watching, I'm finding videos, and I'm combining all of these modalities in order to get the results. And so it's information versus implementation. You got to do the implementation. So for example, when you're watching this video, you're going to get whatever the percentage is, right? You're hearing it, you're seeing me write these things down. So if this is more impactful for me writing it down than if I just shared it with you, let's say I was just doing it from this screen and just lecturing you these numbers, you wouldn't remember them at all. But the fact that I can share with you the numbers in a way that you can see it, now maybe my handwriting's not that good, that you're not really getting what you want. The fact of the matter is you're seeing it and you're picking up more of it. You're going to retain more of this. Now, if you go back to this video and you re-watch it, then you're going to retain even more. If you take the notes yourself and then you go ahead and you reread your notes, you're going to get even more retention. And then implementation is taking those notes from the written, you wrote them down, now you implement them. And then when you implement it, you go back and you review what you were implemented. If you know my old plan, do, review program, that's what that's all about. If you don't know what that is, I got plenty of videos talking about that. But these are the things that you want to look at. And so when you want to get good at something, you read it, you listen, you see it, you start implementing it. Execution. Actually doing what it is that it is there, and you're going to build the skill. So again, that's the immersion aspect. It's the immersion aspect. It's the flight time aspect. It's understanding the numbers. See, if I didn't tell you these numbers, you would think, oh, I read that book. Okay, great. How much of it did you retain? Probably not much, right? 10%. Oh, I heard that one time. Okay, I heard that seminar on MP3, CD, audio tape. How much did you retain? But when you read it, see it, hear it, do it, all of a sudden it starts to become part of your muscle memory, which is probably something I'll cover in another video. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to share some of these concepts with you. And if you want to go ahead and get a copy of the immersion code, actually, let me just see here. I think I got a picture of what this looks like. And if you go to the page, oh, let's see here. I think, you know what? I don't have access to the page right now. So let's not go there, but you can find the page under the information. You can get access to the immersion code. You'll be shocked at the value added pricing that's there. For now, it's limited. But the reason I do that is because when you go through a program like this, you might say, you know what? I want to hire that guy as my coach or mentor, and then you and I can work together, and I can help you really get the immersion and the flight time and get everything that you want and desire. That's the main thing. I hope you've enjoyed this information. And again, go back and watch it. Understand the concept of immersion. Understand these concepts of putting in the flight time. Understand how you retain information. And when you do that, you're going to be way ahead of other people that don't understand these very simple yet profound concepts that you just learned today. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day. So long.
Playing from a tomb.